During this railway adventure, they keep on chugging. 100-year-old locomotives take us back to the romantic age of steam on Switzerland's Brienz Rothornbahn Railway. Hi, I'm Bernie Kopell. Just up the tracks, the last regularly scheduled steam train in Switzerland, and spectacular views. Join me from Brienz to Rothorn-Kulm on railway adventures across Europe.
Journey across the globe, from Scotland to China, with world's greatest train ride videos. Experience the breathtaking thrill and adventure of authentic train travel as you follow the tracks to unique history, fascinating people, and breathtaking scenery. All aboard!
The era of steam was fading fast in the early 1900s. Due to the outbreak of the First World War, only one Swiss steam line was preserved and is in full service today. Our adventure into the romantic steam age begins at Brienz, Switzerland, and climbs to the summit of the Brienz Rothorn mountain. Brienz is the center of the Swiss woodcarving industry. We'll ride curious little locomotives of the Brienz Rothornbahn Railway, past farms and chalets, through the Alpine country to the dazzling Rothorn summit at 7,400 feet. We'll then take a look at its sister railway in Japan, the Origawa Railway. Stay with us as we experience the power of the Brienz Rothornbahn century-old locomotives and the accuracy and convenience of Switzerland's transportation systems. All aboard for Romancing the Steam.
Switzerland's last regularly scheduled steam train is the world-famous Brienz Rothornbahn Railway, known as the BRB, and located in the town of Brienz. The curious-looking little locomotives are specially designed to climb up the very steep Rothorn Alps. Over 7,700 feet high, the views from the summit are amongst the most spectacular in Switzerland. The small picturesque town of Brienz nestles against the shores of the Lake Brienz. The first hotel was built on the Alps in 1838. A year later, introduction of the steam paddle ship service on the Brienz Lake between Interlaken and Brienz boosted the town's tourist business, much as the BRB railway has today. Visitors can still walk around the original parts of this old town, where the small wooden houses huddle around steep, narrow streets. The town is built on the sloping field of a medieval landslide. One of the main tourist attractions is watching the art of an ancient craft, wood carving. This is the center of Switzerland's wood carving industry. Brienz can be reached by many different modes of transportation. Nostalgic paddle steamers and modern new ships ply the ice-cold waters of Lake Brienz between Interlaken and Brienz, carrying passengers on a leisurely cruise between the towns. The Brunig Railway passes through Brienz, linking Luzern in central Switzerland with Interlaken across the world-famous Brunig Pass, a favorite trip in the Railway Adventures series. Switzerland operates a remarkable transportation system, linking different modes of transportation and very accurate schedules. When a train arrives from Luzern or Interlaken, a connection can be made either with the Brienz Rothornbahn Railway or one of the many lake steamers. Across from the Brunig Railway Station and the lake terminal is the small station of the Brienz Rothornbahn Railway. Our railway adventure begins at the lower station of the BRB. Here, the small but powerful steam locomotives will push the bright red passenger cars to the summit station about 5 miles away. Every part of the machinery is gleaming and polished with loving care. The boilers of these small engines incline sharply downwards toward the front to ensure the firebox crown is continually covered with water on the steep inclines. At times, the train climbs at a grade of 25%. The BRB Railway owns 7 old steam locomotives that are still running today. The first 5 were built in 1891 and 1892. The other 2 were built in 1933 and 1936, all by the Swiss Locomotive and Machine Works. The railway is narrow gauge, which permits easier construction on mountainsides, bridges, and tunnels. The cogwheel system on the engine uses a middle rail with notches to pull the train along the steep mountain grades. Construction of a railway up the rugged Rothorn Alp was an incredible engineering feat in the late 1800s, much less today. The opening of the Rigibahn Railway in 1871 proved that cogwheel steam locomotives could conquer the Swiss mountains. The success of the Rigibahn started a feverish building boom. Railway lines to the Pilatus, Bergenstock, and Mount Generoso mountains were soon constructed. Under the guidance of a German engineer named Alexander Linder, construction began on the Rothorn Railway. The year, 1890. The estimated cost, 2 million Swiss francs. The route included a 5-mile stretch from Brienz to the Rothorn summit, 7,360 feet above sea level, with a halfway station at Planalp, 4,400 feet above sea level. 8 tunnels were carved out of the solid mountain rock, totaling over 2,200 feet. At the time, the project was the highest and steepest mountain railway in Switzerland and provided visitors the most spectacular views in the country. Today, visitors from all over the world can still enjoy this unique experience. Building progressed on Switzerland's Rothorn Railway, and in the late summer of 1891, the first steam locomotive transported building material to the halfway station at Planalp. Less than a year later, the line officially opened and its future seemed assured. But due to intense competition from other mountain railways, the line began to deteriorate until eventually in 1914, only the outbreak of World War I prevented the rail line from being dismantled. At the end of the First World War, a new company formed and revitalized the small railway. From then on, it became known as the Brienz Rothornbahn, or BRB. After 16 years of lying idle, the locomotives needed general overhauls and extensive service. Work still performed today in the BRB's own workshops. Over time, it becomes increasingly difficult to find spare parts for these beautiful old locomotives. So the BRB engineers have to manufacture the components themselves. During the years when the BRB was idle, electrification of Switzerland's railways passed them by. When the railroad reopened, it became the last regular steam service to run in Switzerland. The popularity of this small mountain railway increased year after year, and today, thanks to the immense efforts of those who preserve the BRB, nearly 2,000 people a day travel on steam trains from the romantic era of the 1890s. In 1942, an avalanche destroyed the 150-foot-long iron bridge on the BRB line. It was wartime and steel wasn't available, so the bridge was reconstructed of wood. In winter, it was dismantled and then rebuilt in the spring. After 20 years, the bridge was dismantled for the last time, and the line was rerouted in a long, sweeping arc around the high mountain pass. But this route also succumbs to the harsh winters. Some years it takes until June before the final section of rail line to the summit is clear of snow. And until the snow has completely disappeared from the Rothorn Mountain, there's still the danger of an avalanche. In the early years of the railway's operation, it took up to 70 men to dig the track out of the snow before the first locomotive could climb to the summit. Today in the high-risk areas, avalanche galleries are built over the track to guard against serious accidents. Over 100 years later, the locomotives are prepared for work much like they were in the late 1890s. At 6:30 in the morning, the first stoker begins chopping wood and making preparations to light the boilers, getting the steam up to the required pressure that drives the locomotives. The passenger coaches are drawn out of the sheds, and after about 2 hours of work, a two-car train is ready to start its daily service. It takes 2 hours and 15 minutes for the train to make the round trip to the Rothorn summit, including a short stop at Planalp. The steam locomotives maintain a steady speed of 5 miles an hour on the steep climb. All aboard the brightly colored panorama coaches, the controller gives the signal to start our nostalgic adventure back in time as we relive the romantic age of steam travel. With clouds of smoke and steam and a lot of hissing and snorting, the mighty locomotive of the Brienz Rothornbahn Railway charges the mountain slopes. The train attacks the foothills with a vigor belying its advancing years. Storming out of the station, the locomotive pushes its full coaches across the meadows where farmers are cutting and harvesting hay. As the train continues climbing to the summit, we pass farmhouses and Swiss chalets. The lake slips farther away in the early morning haze, and we enter the cool shade of the wooded lower slopes. This part of the Rothorn is called the Brienztergrat. We're back on Switzerland's last regularly scheduled steam train, the Brienz Rothornbahn Railway, to the 7,700-foot summit of the Rothorn Alps. The Rothorn, often referred to as the Brienzer Rothorn, is at the northern tip of a giant Alpine barrier called the Bernese Oberland. On other railway adventures, we travel by train through many of the other mountains that make up this mighty chain. Passing into dark tunnels carved out of solid rock on the side of a sheer cliff face, we pass huge windows in the rock walls. They offer momentary views of the distant valley floor, the deep blue lake, and the town of Brienz far below. The steep climb is made with a constant rhythm by the mighty little locomotive's strong arms. As the train rounds the corner of a high mountain farm, it's easy to see why visitors become enchanted with this mountain paradise. Every turn on the climb reveals a more spectacular view. The Brienz Rothornbahn train rises above the crest of a hill, completing the first section of the adventure. After climbing 4,400 feet, the train turns into a mountain-locked valley at the small passing station of Planalp. Here the water tanks are replenished and the thirsty locomotives are prepared for the final assault on the summit. Cleaning, polishing, and oiling are all a part of this age-old ritual of maintaining the locomotive's immaculate condition. Passengers disembark for refreshments in the cafe. They stop to chat with the engineers, ask questions, and take photographs of the train in the picturesque setting. This steam railway is so highly regarded worldwide that in 1977 the BRB created a sister line in Japan. The steam-driven Origawa Railway is preserved with as much pride there as the BRB here. For the Japanese line, diesel locomotives have been purchased to meet the increased demand. With the boilers stoked, steam pressure reached, and passengers on board, the final push to the summit begins. Steaming out of the Planalp station, the cogwheels immediately take the strain as they commence the climb to the Rothorn Kulm, or summit station, still another 3,300 feet above. Following the contours of this now barren Alp, the railway makes a long sweeping curve past herds of cows, then beneath jagged rocks rising above the tracks. This is the eastern face of the mountain. The steep inclines and twisting, turning tracks are an amazing sight. Here the Alpine scenery changes continually as we pass from the lush lower slopes to the higher, more barren cliffs near the summit. At this elevation, snowdrifts still linger as late as July. Switzerland's Brienz Rothornbahn Railway is nearing the summit of Rothorn Alp. Looking down the mountainside, the twisting, weaving BRB railway track is plainly visible as it clings to the sheer sides of the valley of the Oberstaffelalp. The summit station is 7,360 feet in a sheltered area under a low cliff wall. From here, passengers disembark at the station and take the short walk to the Kulm, or summit. From the path, the aerial cableway leading to the town of Sorenburg can be seen. These large gondolas carry up to 40 passengers at a time. But the cable ride can't replace the romance of climbing the mountain by steam train. The panoramic views from the Rothorn summit are well worth the trip, no matter how you get here. To the south, the dazzling snowfields of the high Alps and the Bernese Oberland call mountain climbers to even higher vantage points. Down below, the waters of the Brienzsee are barely visible through the morning mist. To the north, the rolling mountain peaks of the Brunig Pass pose a formidable barrier. But the Brunig Railway tackles them by train, as do we on another railway adventure. The BRB trains are constantly arriving and departing from the busy summit terminal. Visitors enjoy watching both the scenery and the train crews as they perform the ritual task of cleaning, polishing, and oiling the stately locomotives. The happy faces and interested questions of the passengers are thanks enough to the train crews for all their effort during the long winter months spent working on the trains in the workshop. This incredible feat of engineering is a nostalgic railway adventure spanning over a century of time. For travelers fascinated with new railway adventures, the old art of steam trains and the Brienz Rothornbahn Railway will continue to survive on Switzerland's Rothorn Alp for many years to come.
The Brienz Rothornbahn has kept an era of romance alive for over 100 years. When it comes to locomotives, perhaps the moral of this story is they don't make them like they used to. We hope you've enjoyed romancing the steam. I'm Bernie Kopell. Join me on the next Railway Adventures Across Europe. During this railway adventure, incredible track loops, a drive-up train, and one of the world's longest tunnels on Switzerland's Bern-Lötschberg-Simplon Railway. Hi, I'm Bernie Kopell. Just up the tracks, the English Channel Project, the magnificent Kander Viaduct, and more. Join me from Bern to Brig on Railway Adventures Across Europe. We're about to board a train that circles inside a mountain. It's not a funhouse ride. It occurs out of necessity on a major international rail link through Switzerland. Our railway adventure begins in Bern, Switzerland's capital city. We'll then travel on an incredible railway to Brig, our destination. This is one of the most exciting railway adventures any traveler could hope for. We'll pass through one of the world's longest and most costly tunnels, view ancient castles and the famous Blausee, or Blue Lake. Emerge from the Hondrich Tunnel along the river Kander, ride past the enormous arches of the Kander Viaduct, see where Johannes Brahms composed concertos, and make a wild 180-degree loop into the heart of a mountain. All this by the Bern-Lötschberg-Simplon Railway, plus an excursion up a mountainside on the Niesen Funicular Railway. All aboard for Conquest of the Alps.
Our railway adventure takes us on the BLS Railway, an incredibly efficient system of railroads through some of Switzerland's most spectacular mountains, lakes, rivers, and valleys. The International Railway is a link between Switzerland's capital city, Bern, south through the high Alps to Brig and on to Italy. In 1857, a group of engineers drew the plans for this international network. Over 130 years later, the dream is a high-speed reality. Eurocity express trains and international freight trains vie for space on this busy Alpine crossing that forms the heart of the Bern-Lötschberg-Simplon Railway, known simply as the BLS. The BLS railway system is a large electrified mainline network comprised of a number of different railroads. Some are privately owned, others are part of the Swiss Federal Railways. We'll begin our adventure from Bern, one of the busiest rail interchanges in the country, and travel south to Thun. There are two routes to Thun. One has a stop in Belt, just a bit west of the main line. The other is a direct route south through Thun. Many people consider Thun the true starting point of the BLS. Although the station is owned by the Federal Railways, they work with the BLS in a unique public-private ownership arrangement. Outside the railway station, ships belonging to the BLS wait in the shadow of an ancient castle to take summer passengers on a cruise around the Lake of Thun. In Switzerland, the ship, train, and bus stations and their schedules are all conveniently interconnected. Transportation to outlying villages is available from the railway station by regular bus service. Leaving Thun by rail, our train passes Lake Thun. It was along these banks that Johann Brahms spent his summers composing concertos. As we push south to Spiez, the rail lines follow the west side of the lake. In Spiez, the train station sits high above the town. From here, there's a magnificent view of Lake Thun and the Niederhorn, rising 6,400 feet on the opposite side of the lake. Easily visible from the platform is the symmetrical cone of the Niesen mountain, nearly 7,800 feet above sea level. The train station is full of activity as trains are divided and connections are made for rail lines to other destinations. At Spiez, the BLS railroads connect east to Interlaken and Bonningen. But we'll save this arm of the BLS for another episode of Railway Adventures. Our BLS train departs the Spiez station for the mile-long Hondrik Tunnel. When our train emerges, the track runs alongside the fast-flowing river Kander in the Kander Valley. Our high-speed railway adventure on Switzerland's BLS railway continues. In the Kander Valley of Switzerland, in the town of Mühlenen, stands the train station for the Niesen Funicular Railroad. A funicular operates on a cable system. This little train carries passengers to the Niesen summit, 5,500 feet above the Kander Valley. Cars like this used to be the only way for downhill skiers to get a lift up. Today, passengers are making the trip just for the incredible views that reward them at the summit. Far below, the express trains of the BLS rush up and down the Kander Valley, with their passengers relaxing in the air-conditioned luxury that's the hallmark of modern railway travel across Europe. The BLS rails swing in a large curve past the small station at Vengi before they approach the town of Frutigen. Frutigen is the terminal for a number of local rail services and is a transfer point for interconnecting buses that take passengers further up the valley. This is the commercial center of the area. Here, grains and cereals from surrounding farms are stored, then transported. Just past the Frutigen station are the 11 enormous arches of a magnificent bridge called the Kander Viaduct. Sitting next to the old bridge is a new one, recently constructed to handle increased railway traffic in both directions. Both are a fitting introduction to the amazing engineering works of the BLS Railway. We'll cross more as we head over the rugged terrain of Switzerland. Glaciated valleys are common geological features of this country. When the ancient glaciers retreated, huge deposits of rock created enormous steps in the valley floors. Though picturesque, one of these steps provides a steep challenge to trains heading south from Frutigen. Here they have to climb nearly 1,300 feet in a distance of only 5 miles. A thrill for passengers on the BLS Express comes on the rail lines between Kandergrün and Kandersteg, where there's a magnificent loop of the rail line curving 180 degrees. The train passes the small station at Blausee-Mitholz. Across the loop, our train heads north down the valley and plunges into a unique tunnel. Inside the mountain, the railway climbs in an almost complete circle, emerging high above the valley floor, heading south once again. Far below, hidden in the trees, is the famous Blausee, or Blue Lake. The lake was formed centuries ago by a violent avalanche and is one of nature's great wonders. Its brilliant blue color comes from minerals. Blausee is fed by a high mountain lake called Oceanen. As the water makes its underground passage down, it passes through mineralized rocks. Our BLS train emerges at the top of the mountain step in Switzerland's Kander Valley, then runs into Kandersteg station. All trains make a stop at Kandersteg, including the Eurocity Expresses running from Central Europe and Italy. Outside the station, a BLS bus takes ongoing passengers to outlying areas. The convenient bus, ship, and train schedules make traveling in Switzerland a pleasure for both locals and tourists. Kandersteg sits amidst the glorious splendor of the high Alps. It's surrounded by famous peaks: the Bloomless Alphorn, the Doldenhorn, the Balmhorn, and the Attles. Other nearby peaks are the Beere and the Gilhorn. Combined, these mighty mountains form a nearly impenetrable barrier known as the Lötschberg. It's through the Lötschberg Mountains that the last great Alpine tunnel was constructed. This enormous project began at the northern end of Kandersteg on October 15, 1906. It began a day later in Goppenstein at the southern end. The Lötschberg Tunnel is a vital transportation link for the country and Europe. Trains roar through every day with many passengers unaware of the dangers faced by the men and women who built it. When construction first began, all went well. An advanced type of boring machine was used for the first time. Using this machine, the crews carved 33 feet a day. But disaster struck in July 1908 when the boring machine broke out of solid rock. In 10 minutes, the tunnel filled with water, stones, and gravel. Tragically, 25 Italian workers lost their lives, and construction was halted for several months. This section of the tunnel was blocked off and abandoned. To bypass the dangerous area, crews added 3 curbs and an additional 800 yards to the tunnel. The Lötschberg Tunnel is over 9 miles long. It was finally opened after 7 years of construction on July 15, 1913. Since there are no roads over the Lötschberg Mountain, motorists load their cars on a special BLS car carrier train at Kandersteg. Passengers can sit in their car or board the train. They are then carried through the Lötschberg Tunnel for unloading at Goppenstein on the other end, or vice versa if they're heading north. This unique operation is also being used in the Channel project under the English Channel. Each year, over 800,000 cars travel by train through the tunnel, with about 1/3 belonging to foreign visitors. Cars don't have to be unloaded at Goppenstein. The trains carrying vehicles through Switzerland and Italy are a familiar sight. We depart Goppenstein for Houghton on the BLS train and begin the descent to Brig through a series of tunnels and avalanche shelters along the wild Lanza River Valley. After a sharp curve to the left, the views open up, revealing the Rhone Valley at Houghton. We pass Houghton on Switzerland's BLS railway for our ultimate destination, Brig. The line clings to the north wall of the Rhone Valley. From here, passengers can appreciate the engineering genius of the original railway builders. A good example of those skills can be seen in the high-spanning arches of the Lugelken Bridge, perhaps the most famous on the entire railway. Further down the Rhone Valley stands the Bietschtal Steel Bridge with its 312-foot wide arch sitting 255 feet above the gorge. As the rail line approaches the valley floor, the BLS announces its presence in 30-foot letters. Finally, the tracks cross the steel girder bridge over the River Rhone. This is the last landmark on the way to Brig. Arriving at the Brig Junction, the BLS transfers to the Federal Railway's train section, then continues south through the massive Simplon Tunnel to Italy. At Brig, connections can be made through the Swiss Federal Railway to Geneva. From outside the station at Brig, the world-famous Glacier Express departs at a more leisurely pace on its journey from Zermatt to St. Moritz. We'll save that trip for another episode of Railway Adventures. Switzerland's BLS Railway is a fascinating adventure for both its engineering marvel and its magnificent scenery.
Some find adventure climbing mountains, others find it riding through them. In a sense, the BLS is proof that man can move mountains and reach his dreams. We hope you've enjoyed Conquests of the Alps. I'm Bernie Kopell. Join me on the next Railway Adventures Across Europe. On this railway adventure, Europe's best-kept secret railway and a Swiss birthday party that's over the edge on Switzerland's Rhaetian Railway. Hi, I'm Bernie Kopell. Just up the tracks, a flying birthday cake and a race up Weisshorn Alp. Join me from Chur to Arosa on Railway Adventures Across Europe. The railway we're about to travel is deserving of the motto inscribed on one of its stations. In English, it would translate, where there's a will, there's a way. It's truly an amazing engineering feat and a hidden treasure few have discovered. Our railway adventure originates in the Swiss city of Chur in the canton or state of Graubünden. From Chur, we'll travel to the resort town of Arosa. This remarkable adventure holds little-known and surprising sights, villages that seem to cling to mountainsides, numerous bridges and viaducts through Alpine country, a foot race up Mount Weisshorn, and some unusual festivities surrounding the railway's anniversary, including a daring stunt and a gigantic birthday cake. Stay with us as we travel the Rhaetian Railway, Europe's best-kept secret railway. All aboard for the Secret Summit Express.
Our railway adventure will take us through magnificent alpine scenery in the canton or state of Graubünden, which lies in the southeast corner of Switzerland. The canton borders Austria to the west, Italy to the south, and is world famous for its ski resorts. We'll start in the capital of Graubünden, Chur, and head to the mountain resort of Arosa, which is only an hour away by train. The Rhaetian, also known as the RHB Railway, is a sprawling network of railways that serve the small mountain villages and visitors to the area. Swiss Federal Railway service ends in Chur. All passengers and freight are transferred to the Rhaetian for their trip into the mountains. The railway from Chur to Arosa is a wonderful train trip not even many Europeans know about. This hidden treasure begins modestly in the square outside the station and is separated from the main Rhaetian system because its electrical system is on a different current than the rest of the RHB railway. The Arosa line was opened in December 1914 and incorporated into the Rhaetian system January of 1942. As we leave the square, our train climbs up the Engadinastrasse to reach the Plesser River by the gates of the ancient town dating back to Roman times. There are quiet old squares and narrow streets within the ancient walls, and life in the old quarter runs at a leisurely pace, even though the modern world with the latest shops and busy commerce is never far away. A sleek postal bus passes by and shares the street with our train today. Our bright red train on the city streets has been a familiar sight for over 75 years. We roll gently out of Chur toward Arosa in the hot summer sunshine and travel along the river. On the outskirts of town, the road runs along a cantilevered or extension bridge that gives cars and trains enough space to follow the same path. Trains regularly travel through here, going to or from Arosa and pass by Sand, the main depot. There is a delightful wooden station building at the Lune Castile Depot over 3,000 feet above sea level. And like so many buildings on this line, it's all decked out in flowers through the summer. Passengers can stop over at Lune Castile and visit the small village which clings to the steep mountainsides of the valley. All the station depots on this line are also ornately decorated and bear a motto. Here in Lune Castile, it translates to, "Where there's a will, there's a way." The heavy log construction of the buildings stand up to even the toughest Alpine winters. You'll see breathtaking mountain views in every direction throughout our entire trip to Arosa. The next section of the railway will bring us to the St. Peter Molina station and takes us within sight of the distant peaks that surround Arosa. This was a very difficult railroad to construct. The first section of the route seems to rest precariously on the side of a deep gorge. The tracks take us through rock shelters, tunnels, and bridges. The unstable nature of the ground in this area made tunneling extremely difficult, and many of the viaducts or bridges were constantly shifting during early construction. Today, the railway is an outstanding example of Swiss engineering. Our railway adventure continues on Switzerland's Rhaetian Railway to the resort of Arosa. Most of the engines in service on the RHB Railway were built in 1957 and 1958 and are called power cars. The entire railway system in Switzerland is electrified. As we leave the St. Peter Molina station, the train takes us to Peist, climbing to nearly 4,100 feet above sea level. The beautiful little village of Peist clings to the side of a steep mountain. Many trains offer comfortable first and second class accommodations, as well as baggage compartments for belongings. As our train winds its way up to the Grundjatobel Bridge, the mountain views get more spectacular with every turn. Langwieser station is just about 2 miles away and nearly 4,500 feet above sea level. Just past the station, we'll see one of the most famous and most photographed features of the RHB Railway, the Langwieser Bridge. The double track at the station makes a busy passing place for trains going and returning from Arosa. Langwieser is a perfect place to take a moment, sit, relax, and enjoy the view as the trains go by. We'll leave the station for our ride to Arosa. The train swings south, heading toward the magnificent Langwieser Bridge, truly an engineering marvel. The open panorama cars should give us quite a thrill when we cross the bridge. When it was built in 1913, the bridge contained the longest reinforced concrete span in the world. The 940-foot-long bridge has a 315-foot center span and sits almost 205 feet above the river. As our train continues to climb through the valley, we pass traditional homes and farms carved into the side of the foothills. The older power cars still pulling trains are paired up in double-headed arrangements or back-to-back. Here we can see number 32, built in 1908, pulling a fully loaded train with ease. On the return trip to Langwieser station, just a short distance down the track, we're about to see a most unusual sight. One of the many festivities surrounding the railway's anniversary, and this one is just a little over the edge. The director of the Arosa Tourist Office is about to hang from the Langwieser Bridge, carrying the banner of Arosa and a replica of the birthday cake to celebrate the anniversary of the railway. As preparations are being made for the event, regular train service to Arosa and Chur will continue across the narrow bridge. Our railway adventure on the RHB continues, and it's back to the Langwieser Railway Bridge to witness this daring event commemorating the Swiss Rhaetian Railway's 100 years of service. The banner of Arosa and a replica cake sway in the breeze from 203 feet above the river. Leaving Langwieser, our train twists and turns through the trees, heading deeper into the Swiss Alps. The tree line etched across the mountains in the distance indicates just how high our adventure has taken us. Forever twisting and turning, the railway heads towards another stop on our trip. Passing through wilderness areas of mountains and thick forests, our train enters a serene opening between the mountains. Litzrudi is almost 5,000 feet above sea level, and it's set in beautiful surroundings that offer a wide variety of relaxing and pleasant activities. Lakes mirror the distant trains on their approach to Arosa, and the scenery is absolutely breathtaking. Mountains tower over the resort beaches of Arosa, where sunbathers hardly notice the train full of passengers rolling by. On the outskirts of this village, we enter a short tunnel under a grassy knoll. Our train appears out of a tunnel and arrives at the station by the lake just 1 hour after leaving Chur. The lake at Arosa is one of the main attractions of this beautiful town and draws visitors from all around. Outside the station, horse-drawn taxis wait to bring visitors to their hotels. And for those with some extra energy, there's a race to the summit of the Visthorn. But mostly visitors come here to relax, and on this day, enjoy the festivities and entertainment commemorating the 75th anniversary of the Chur-Arosa rail line and 100 years of the RHB railway. It's a day for wearing traditional national costumes, but the highlight of the celebration is the arrival of this enormous cake topped by a replica of an early RHB steam locomotive. There should be enough cake for the officials, dignitaries, and everyone on our train. We're just in time in our railway adventure to enjoy the festivities in Switzerland's beautiful resort town of Arosa. Arriving on the RHB railway, the giant cake commemorates the railway's anniversary. Crowds gather for their piece of the cake. Only an hour by train from the bustling capital city of Chur. This is the life. Ever present and towering above the town and lakes in the area is the summit of the Visthorn. If you don't feel energetic enough to run up the Visthorn, the easy way to the top is by cable car, which climbs from behind the train station to 8,700 feet above sea level. From the summit, our entire adventure from Chur to Arosa is laid out at our feet. If you look carefully, you can also see the other routes of the RHB, slicing through the valley to the left and right, taking passengers to the four corners of Graubünden and beyond into Italy and Austria. This one-hour railway adventure from Chur to Arosa may be Europe's best-kept secret.
The Rhaetian Railway to Arosa is a secret we couldn't resist telling. We hope you've enjoyed the Secret Summit Express. I'm Bernie Kopell. Join me on the next Railway Adventures Across Europe.
On the next World's Greatest Train Ride Video Adventure.